So that one jumped out at me this week as just another way to think about God expressing as us. We talk about that here all the time, that the presence of the divine is everywhere, including in us. The God of omnipresence, one presence, must be within each one of us. And therefore, we have the opportunity to experience the presence of God as us over and over and over again. If not in the moment through us, through someone else coming towards us. And as we enter into this Christmas season, most Christian churches are focusing on Jesus as the Son of God come to save us from our sinful nature. And Unity is a progressive Christian movement that takes that idea of Jesus as the Christ, and as he said, that we too are the light of the world, and that we too can do as he did and even greater things. Just become aware of the Christ within. That it was not just for Jesus and as Jesus, but the Christ is everywhere present, God expressing uniquely as each one of us. So there's billions of God expressing uniquely. And we have the opportunity to experience that presence in a variety of ways. We're talking about God in 3 persons this month. And last week we talked about knowing God in the 3rd person, which is seeing God as the life of the activity in our bodies, as that which fills heaven and earth, that causes life to be on this planet, and the light, not only within our own hearts and as our own souls, but knowing God as the light of the world everywhere present. We came up with many divine names and qualities of God that can be expressing, and I'm just asking you to be on the lookout for that. That's what we talked through last week, so if you missed that, you might want to go back and watch the live stream recording. And today we're moving on to the 2nd person, how we experience 2nd person, and that's usually when you are interacting with someone else. So think of knowing God as a separate being. We react or interact with God as a separate being. This is probably the most common way that people interact with spirit, is to, we've had a lot of teaching in our spiritual organizations about a male gender sitting on a throne, a separate being from us, but looks human like us, and that we can talk to God, but we're not really sure how to hear God. We can ask God things, but we're not really sure whether God will respond or not. So today we're going to look at how we can interact with spirit. And although this may be taboo to some Unity ministers to even speak of God this way, because we're so much more focused on first person, I am an expression of God, that they would say, kitty, kitty, you're doing it wrong. And I'm saying, too bad, I'm doing it this way anyway. Because there are so many ways to experience that which is infinite. And when we talk about God in the 2nd person, we want to learn more deeply how to relate to this version of God. Talking to God, might be looking at the ceiling at night when you're laying in bed and talking to God that way, relating. Oftentimes we are taught as children to relate to God as a separate being, even a father. And when Jesus introduced that word in the Lord's Prayer, the word he used instead of father was daddy, and the word was Abba. And that was very unusual for people to think of God in that intimate, warm, loving presence way. But you'd be surprised to learn what kids think about God. And depending on how they were raised, what religion they might call themselves, they have a lot of ideas. And I wanted you to hear today how when they have a 2nd person relationship with God, this is what it sounds like to them. So if we can watch that video, please.
I am a Muslim.
Baptist.
Technically, I'm Jewish.
Ethical culturist.
I don't really get what you're saying.
Muslim.
Muslim. I consider being a Muslim. I don't know.
I believe in God, but in Arabic it's Allah.
I'm not supposed to say it.
Hashem? Yes, but many other different names that are in the Bible.
God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit.
He's the creator.
He gives people lots of chances and he can re-give.
Creates apples.
He makes peace. He could just make the earth collapse inward.
When he gets happy, I think he brings out the sun again.
If caterpillar is just walking around, Allah decides when it needs to go into its chrysalis to turn into a butterfly.
I always picture him as being like a father.
Kind of like Santa.
I don't think I have a particular reason. I just don't think he's real.
I think he lives up in
Heaven.
It's called Jannah. It's like a different dimension.
somewhere in Egypt.
I picture of it as like a city up in the sky.
I don't think heaven actually exists, but something similar to it,
The bushes will grow candy.
probably.
Bad people go to bad heaven.
I don't believe in it.
It's where bad God is.
You're just dead.
Only people that believe in God believe in heaven.
Different people can believe different things.
Because everybody's different.
We respect other faiths.
There are many different religions all over the world, and
Their beliefs don't affect me.
It's their choice. No one's wrong and no one's right. It doesn't matter if they believe in stuff that we don't.
We just respect each other and then we'll all be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So what did you hear them say? Just shout out your one or two words. How were they describing God? Santa. I kind of heard the Willy Wonka idea where candy grows on bushes in heaven. Yeah. What else did they describe? Bad guy daddy. Did somebody say robber? No. Okay. Allah. Allah. Yes. Yes. And you could kind of get an idea of how it's in a monotheistic point of view, one God, which basically is shared, as you probably know, that Christians and Jews and Muslims all came out of the same family. So if we are raised in some type of religious organization from a very young age, we take in whatever the main theology is, and that becomes authoritarian for us. They sort of expressed God as one who's remote, up in the sky somewhere, and also some believed in heaven, some didn't, some believed in God, some didn't. They also got a little progressive there when they talked about it's okay if people believe differently, that there's lots of religions in the world, and we have the opportunity to respect each other's beliefs. And wouldn't that have been nice when I was 3, that's what they taught. So one way to experience this, having an experience of the mystical expression of the divine, is to come into a church and learn what they believe, and if it makes your heart sing, then you tend to plant roots there. And my view of God from a very early age was far away. I prayed to, but not sure if he heard. It was a he. And I asked for things, but not sure if he was going to give them to me. So a lot of times, I felt like God was too busy to listen to a kid. And so I kind of started thinking maybe my buddy was going to be Jesus. And so I started just praying to Jesus. And I realized as I came into probably my 30s that I had totally abandoned God in my relationship experience. It was like Jesus was the go-between, and that was the only person that I ever spoke to and prayed to and thanked and asked for things. But other people work with other symbols, other realities that could give them what they need, or it could be that relationship experience. So, for instance, I'm sure that some of you have an affinity for angels, maybe, or you imagine that there are spiritual guides in the spiritual dimension who are here to support us. I've literally heard it said, one intuitive who talks a lot about angels, is that they have expertise in different areas. So if you want to take a trip, you just call on a travel guide angel and ask them to bring you ideas about where to have a really good vacation. Or if it's time to buy a house, you just call out for the real estate angel and ask them to find you the right and perfect home and lead you in that direction. If you're sick in your body and you're just not getting there with your own faith, that you call out to a healing guide to help to heal your body. And this is also, I discovered when I moved to the Chicago area, I don't know if I ever met a Catholic in San Francisco, but they're everywhere here. And they have their own TV channel. And every Saturday night, there's a movie on about one of the saints, and you can learn how the saint lived and how they became a saint. And so then I understood, okay, this is why people pray to the saints specifically, is because they have an expertise. And you probably have heard of Saint Francis as one of the saints, and that he has an affinity for animals. There's Saint Christopher, who's about protecting us. There's Saint Rita, who's the patron of the impossible. Dear Lord, she should be my right-hand girl to get us through things that seem like just impossible to function through. And certain angels are right here with us all the time. We have our guardian angels. So a family way back when we first started Unity came in one morning and said, we just had a very interesting experience at our house. They had 2 little kids. They were like 5 and 7, and they were all out in the garage putting stuff in the car, and suddenly the garage door broke and came crashing down. And they knew that their little girl had been standing kind of right in line where the door was going to crash. But instead, she was moved out of the way and down on the ground. And they're like, oh my God, how did you know to move so quickly? And she said, well, the lady said to get out of the way and I wouldn't move, and so she pushed me. Take that in for just a minute. Okay, all of your angels right here beside you are going, yeah! Yes, just open your heart to that idea that there is a loving presence that you may know has this mystical experience. And when I use the word mystical this month, I'm talking about having a feeling, and a total physical, mental, magical, emotional, spiritual experience that you can't deny. And because we each are the Christ expressing, then we each have opportunities to have those at any given moment. So the question is, are you looking for them? Are you asking for them? Are you expecting them? Do you have faith in them? And I'm just going to ask you to keep your eyes open for the love of God providing itself to you. How many times are we surrounded by people who would be willing to be that friend, but we forgot to ask or we forgot to look for it? How many times do we have the opportunity to be that friend and we forgot to be that friend, to give of ourselves to others? That, you're going to roll your eyes at me maybe, but just think about who here has an account on Facebook? Okay, that's a pretty good number. What if every time, well, let me ask you this. How many times have you shared something on Facebook that you're going through that's difficult and somebody replied back and said, I'm with you, I'm supporting you, I'm holding you in prayer? Anyone have that experience? Yeah. And think about how many times it's Kitty's birthday and Kitty gets a bunch of people sending me birthday wishes. How many times have you posted something that you just got a new job and everybody's congratulating you? It may seem hokey, but in reality, this is what helps build our spirit, is to know that there's other people who are aware of us, who know what we're going through and are there to support us with love or joy or compassion. That's God expressing. And we can do it on Facebook. It gets a bad rap, and I see why in many ways, but it's also a lot of good. And every single one of you who have an account here can be purposely demonstrating that goodness in your own heart for others. So keep looking for those opportunities where God is expressing and you can relate to that experience. It seems to be coming through an auditorium full of kids, but in truth, it's just the one presence and power, wanting to love on you and support. How many times have you, I just back from the hospital and now I have 6 weeks of recovery, and somebody puts up there, I can help you with food, do you want me to drop something off? Those are ways that you can be the divine in expression. And as you're relating to others as the divine, you are relating to the divine as the divine. So keep looking for those mystical moments where you can feel the joy and the peace and the love that wants to express through you. Recognize that what expresses through you is the good pleasure of God seeking to give you the kingdom. That's what Jesus told us. It is God's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. And I can't even begin to describe all that the kingdom is. But your heart will tell you, here's an opportunity for you to be an expression of that. I also love how we can open up our hearts to hear from Spirit and set an intention to be something, to learn something, to express something, and you get immediate support. I had a beautiful demonstration of this that was one of my aha moments. And I was in my car at the park where I do a lot of work, even in 10 degrees below zero, I do this. And I was reading a book, and this one was called Hiring the Heavens by Jean Slatter, I think. And she was talking about all the different forms of angels and spirit guides and people on the other side who are here on purpose to help you. They're just waiting for you to ask. And that was really the biggest piece of this book was just ask. They're waiting. It's their joy to support you, but they need you to ask. They're not going to get involved in your life and do things that you don't want them to do. And so I just went, okay, I'm putting you to the test. And I was, it's kind of early on in Unity's life, and I decided to ask, I think I'm calling on the recruiter angels to go out and recruit people who would benefit from Unity in Naperville and bring them to me. And within 15 minutes, a car drove into the parking lot. And there was hardly any cars in the parking lot, but she parked right next to me. My windows were open, her windows were open. And as she pulled up beside me, I could hear a recording playing in her car of Esther Hicks. Now, if you don't know Esther Hicks, she is also known as Abraham Hicks, and she has written many books that I've taught here at Unity. So it's not a common choice for people to be listening to that and then to pull up right next to me and to have her windows down within 15 minutes. And I took it as a sign, and I just basically yelled out my window to her, hey, I know her. I've heard her speak. I teach her classes. And she's going, Esther Hicks? I said, yes. She said, oh, I love her. And then we sat there and had a 20-minute conversation through our windows. And she started asking how I got to know Esther Hicks, and I talked to her about Unity. And she said, you have a church? You teach this? And the next Sunday she came to church. Okay, so that was 15 minutes of me asking for them to bring in people to Unity. That was one of those moments where, wow, this is fun. I have a whole staff that I didn't realize was available to me, and they do everything. They have every kind of talent and resource available. I'm just going to start putting them to the test. So keep that in mind. It's God's good pleasure to give you the kingdom, but we also need to ask. Ask and it's given, seek and you'll find, knock and the door will be open to you, Jesus said. So keep opening up to what is possible. And one of the main ways that we have a relationship a second person perspective with the divine is through prayer. I mean, most of us, when we were taught to pray, some of us were given prayers to speak by rote, which, the Lord's Prayer is a perfect example of that. But saying whatever it is that you want to say to God is completely up to you how you want to pray. And oftentimes when we learn to pray, we tend to think of the person that we're praying to as that separate being. It's the higher mind with just my lowly mind. It's me, the helpless creature, speaking to the divine master. But in truth, if you're going to pray from that point of view, that I'm praying to that which is so much greater than me, and I don't even know if I can trust this being, then we might as well not be praying. One of the things that John Randolph Price wrote in his book, it's called The Jesus Code. He said, we must think as Spirit knows that we are rich, whole, loved, wonderfully successful. With those thoughts of I am, in agreement with our divine consciousness, we become the law of harmony unto our world. Conversely, when we pray from the ego's fearful perception of lack, sickness, friction, and failure, we're affirming that we have not. And he that has not, from him shall be taken even that which he has, as Jesus said. So what's taken from us, or that which we have not, is the consciousness of God. If we don't have a consciousness of the allness of God being given of itself all the time, then even what we have managed to scrabble together, we lose because we didn't know how we got it in the first place. Look at the number of people who win the lottery and then within a year, all their money is gone because they didn't understand the source of their good. So as we're praying, what we do in unity is we affirm what is true about God in any of our situations. And know, first of all, that God is always giving. One of you, sorry, that was a cut in my sentence. Let me start over. One of you sent me an email recently that I haven't replied to yet, and I think the question was, does God always say yes? Or does God ever say no? And I would say that if we can begin in the understanding of what God is, all that is, and it's everywhere, and it's eternal, so it's going to go on forever, then that means whatever it is that you want to experience is already being given by God. So in my interpretation, I would say it's always yes. Now, if it's wanting to harm someone else, that's not in God's purview, because God can only be what it is, love. But if you can trust that that presence is being, and let's work with the qualities again of God. If you can first understand that God is all love all the time, and you say, I want love in my life, God's answer is yes, because God is the love that you're seeking. And once you know what that love is and who it is and how it's wanting to express through you and you can become it, then you start to attract it. The law is part of the process. Does that make sense? So when you're struggling financially and you're asking God for financial support of some kind, and we know that God's nature is divine substance, that it is the spiritual essence and energy that has created this universe, then we know it's always here and all around us. And now I take it and form it and fashion it into what my heart desires. So the answer is yes, you are abundant. So if you can spend more time knowing what God is and know that that presence is giving of that all the time, then it's really about us. What do we say? Well, how would we answer our own request? Because if we work from, I don't have enough, I need you to give it to me, then you're disagreeing with what you need. Does that make sense? So we have a relationship with God by affirming back to God what God is in any given need. We also have the chance to experience the Christ when we give of it and its qualities to others, when we're expressing being the Christ in other people's lives. We can be the presence of peace for someone when they're in major chaos. You can be a heart-opening, compassionate, loving, listening, kind being for someone who needs it. You can be that presence of encouragement and being ready to fill a need when it comes up before you. So as you are that, you become that aha moment for someone else. I can't believe you showed up just now. I really need you. Had that ever been said to you? Make yourself available. Okay, this is a chance I'm going to ask my microphone runners. There's a mic. Casey, where are you? Here's a mic over here in the front row, and I'm going to ask Enoch to come up and get one. And you guys, if you just can tell a short, keep it short, story of how you've had the experience of something that you went, wow, that was God that happened to me. Anybody got a story you want to share? Or you had a chance to be something for someone else? Okay, here's Steve. And if you got one over here on this side, raise your hand, and Enoch will be ready over there.
So last Saturday, I have a dear friend of mine I've known for decades that lives in Phoenix, and I visited her a year ago, and we went out, we had a great time, and her life's a little different than mine, and she invited me to some of that behavior, and I said, no, thank you, and I felt bad. I called her a month later and left her a voice message and said, I love you, whatever, and I never heard back from her. So it's been 6-7 months, and last Saturday, before I went to bed, I was thinking about her and thinking about all the great times we've shared in our life. First thing in the morning, get a text from Sherry. Hi, Steve. How is my friend? When am I going to see you again? So, just a small.
Yeah. Spirit knows what we need. Spirit knows what we need to hear or see in any given moment. So keep your eyes open. What else?
So this isn't, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
This isn't as short as I'd like, but when I graduated found a recruiter who said, you'd be great with pharmaceutical sales. And so I said, boy, those guys make a lot of money, so I should do that. So I went through the interview process, got to the last interview between myself and another person. And the vice president of the company said, pretend I'm an OB-GYN and you're going to sell me drugs for pregnant women so they won't have morning sickness. And an alarm went off in my head saying I would never give a pregnant woman a drug. So I gave a half-hearted speech, and then I said, just give it to the other guy, and I walked out. So, and then I'm driving home, and here's the aha moment. I said, okay, God, this is your big chance. Tell me what you want me to do. And the word chiropractic flashed in the sky.
Chiropractic?
Yep. And that was 45 years ago.
And he's a chiropractor, in case you didn't figure that part out. Thank you. Judd.
So I'm tired from running for office, and I was like, gosh, should I really be doing this? I can help more people. So yesterday, I got a text from a friend of mine from my Rotary Club. He was downtown Chicago, and he said, I started the paper Streetwise, and he asked the Streetwise vendor, do you know the founder? And he goes, yeah, it's Judd, and he had a picture of he and I. And then later that evening, someone who goes to church here sent me a text saying that she bought a Streetwise, so that was very cool.
How easy it is for Spirit to connect us. Isn't that fun? Doesn't take much, right? Val?
I joined a meetup, not a meetup, but from Facebook, women that were estranged from their children. And we met one time about a month ago, and we had like 15 interested people this week. And I was the one in charge of getting a room at the Wheaton Library. And so there was conflict there that, some people were too far, and, where is it? And it was supposed to be like 10, 15 people, and only 3 of us showed up. And I was like listening to this woman tell her story, and I'm like, she's talking about everybody else, my son, my daughter, my husband, my parents, and I was kind of like, I'm past this. I'm further than this. This is where I was. And as I listened to her, I said, this is my story. She's in this conflict with her family, and I plan on writing a book about this because it's so covert, and it took me years to figure out. And I was able to open her eyes and tell her that I was there, and I continued to write to her after we got home. And she was so grateful that I really, saved her years of what I had to go through and question and figure out on my own.
Yeah.
So, and it gave me this inspiration for my book. Like
Wow.
there is a need for me to tell my story, to save people years of their life.
Thank you. And how good is it just to know that you're not alone in whatever you're going through, that you're not alone and that other people can relate to you. We're going to go over here, and then over here we'll be done.
What is it? 3 years ago, my best friend died. It was my dog. Yeah, and his name was Hunter Boy, and he was going through a really tough time, and he was just getting old. He was 13. He was a Vizsla, which they live up to around 12. So we got one more year in. But my grandpa was on the fence about euthanizing him because he was just struggling so much. And I remember one night, 3 days before he died, I prayed to God. I said, please give me a sign of when he's gonna go. And that night, I truly believe that God was visiting me in my dream. I had a dream about where he would die and who would be there, and all of the feelings were just it was so real. And then 3 days later, it was the exact same scenario.
Wow.
And I truly believe that in the dream, I saw 2 angels, and then 2 nurses actually came to our house because that's how he was euthanized.
Oh, yeah.
And they truly were angels in that moment.
Wow, how beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Kim?
You guys are my angels. You're the hands, the feet, the heart of God. And I remember, try not to give her a Clint here, but a couple years ago, had some health challenges and was going through some treatment. And I swear to God, folks showed up every day with food because there was just so much going on. And yeah, I literally saw dozens of angels just appearing before me, so thank you.
Yeah, wow, thanks everyone. After the service is over today, I'm just going to invite you to, if you've got more stories to share, we got a great cafe out there to just sit and enjoy conversation with one another and see what else you'd like to share about this. We're talking about how we can relate to God one-on-one, either internally in our prayer time, in our meditation, externally with other human beings, with scenarios that just show up for us when we need them. Be mindful this week as to how Spirit is seeking to connect with you, and you can actually start the ball rolling, following Jesus' instructions up here on the screen. But whenever you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who's in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him. Know that that presence is expressing in infinite ways and will express for you in exactly the way that you need. If you expect it, if you have faith in it, if you are looking for it with an absolute calm sense of knowing, that is one of our number one ways to relate to God as we get to know God better in our lives. And next week, we're going to do the mother of all relationships, I am God. We'll take that on and we'll live through it, I promise. But let's take some time in the quiet right now and find, first and foremost, you don't have to go anywhere, just start where you are, in your chair. And if you could close your eyes, shut Can you hear me? Okay. Feel where your heart is in your body. And while you know that it is a physical heart that is beating life through your body, imagine that heart as the very love of God, as a person, as a consciousness of love. You are loved. By the one mind, the one heart of the one God, expressing in infinite ways. And we're grateful as we make this heart-to-heart connection. That divine love is now and always working for our good. Knows what we need before we even ask. Is always giving of itself. Take this moment right now to open your heart to that good, to feel it flowing in and through you, in your mind, in your thoughts. To feel that love of spirit working things in a way that allows you to be the fullness of God in expression. Everywhere I turn, I see love, and I gratefully receive it. Anything I need, I see it giving itself as God. Giving itself to all that seek it. I can relax now and feel grateful that this loving presence is available to me now and always. I say yes to love. I say yes to good. And I am an extension of that good to others, for there is always enough good to go around. It's always been so simple. I just say yes and thank you and let it be as me. And so it is. Amen.